right, we'll get started and review agenda. So today we have inputs from three. Do I see Jennifer in the room? No, I don't. So maybe.
You hand me a piece of paper and I'll get started.
Okay. All right. So we have input from Association of School Business Officials, so a different organization, and another school board member, and also DOE on the subject of testing and assessments and so on. All right. Anything anybody wants to change? No. All right, we'll go with that. So I'd like to approve the minutes. So we need a couple of minutes to look at the minutes. We have two sets. We have one set here from October 6th, right?
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Go ahead. Representative Bricky.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I didn't turn that on. Parenthetically, it says, when SAU numbers, halfway down page 1, when SAU numbers increased many years ago, the assumption was that towns would opt for a principal/business manager type of structure. Instead, we got more SAUs. I didn't remember that.
That's a good point. So this should say, this is from Jim Rubens.
Yeah, okay.
This is a comment that I received by email.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't like presented or anything.
Well, I mentioned it, right?
It was in the discussion.
Oh, I didn't remember that at all.
From Jim Rubens.
Thank you.
So this is former Senator Jim Rubens, who made the law that allowed SAUs to break up, I guess.
No, for more SAUs.
For more,
To have more SAUs.
right, for SAUs to
Went from
break up.
60 to 100.
Right, for
Right.
SAUs to break up.
To break up, right?
Right.
So that's more,
To add more SAUs.
Right.
well,
They were, they
the
were,
way you get more SAUs is you take one and turn it into three.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Okay. Anyways,
okay, thank you.
yes, but so we'll add that. We'll add a comment here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? No. Oh, it looks like, is your name misspelled on page 3?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
I didn't write it that way. I did not. Somebody probably
Okay.
can't read my writing.
Is it, what is it?
BRICCHI. The R and the I must have run together.
Okay, I see.
Thank you.
And Jennifer Floor's name, Floor is listed as Jennifer Floor.
Where is that?
You know, we corrected
For
that
a
on
few
the
lines
phone.
above where we corrected Representative Bracci's name.
Other states,
Four looks
Jennifer,
right.
Four, F-O-O-R.
Oh, sorry.
That is right.
It is right.
And I'm
It
wrong.
was wrong.
My apologies.
in the Original.
Yeah.
Minute.
Okay. Would you like to move approval?
Sure, I will.
Okay. Representative Bricky moves that we approve the corrected minutes of October 6th. Seconded by Representative Leon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Okay, good. So now we have Mr. Bates. Welcome. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll need one for this blue folder, or I guess I can give mine if you don't have enough. Yeah, okay. Yes, press the button. They'll become red. They're very good.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Chuck Bates, mostly retired part-time executive director of New Hampshire ASBO, the New Hampshire Association of School Business Officials. And I was invited here to share a little bit about our background and our story and our input that might help support you in your decision-making going forward. So I'll just run through this, give the background first, and then I'll get into some of the meat, if you will, of our position on what consolidation of SAUs means. I grew up most of my life in Nashua. My wife and I and our 4 kids were all product of the Nashua public school system. We have 6 grandchildren. And in any case, early in my career, I started off in the trades based upon experiences I had at Nashua High, very positive experiences. But over time, over the next couple of years, I ended up migrating into the high-tech sector. And at the same time, I was pursuing an undergrad degree in business, full-time nights and weekends while working full-time days. That experience exposed me to a lot of adjunct faculty who gave me a lot of great perspectives on how to take the textbook and apply it to the business place, if you will. So I always admired those folks, and I thought maybe someday I could do that, I could teach. In any case, starting down my high-tech career, spent 20 years in high-tech, completing my business degree, getting my master's degree in computer information systems. At one point, one of my co-workers and I decided to start a company, a telecom equipment and software company, venture capital funded, and grew that to 250 employees, a global company, and sold out to Lucent Technologies back in 2004. So as an entrepreneur, I've had a lot of experience in how to apply what's learned in the classroom to the business world. From there, after about a year after that integration was complete, decided to move on and pursue something that I'd always wanted to try, and that was teaching. So I started pursuing my second master's degree in business ed, got a part-time job subbing in Nashua, and then up at the lake. Once we bought our lake house up there, I decided to sub up in Moulton Borough and Interlakes in Meredith. That led to a position. I got hired at Interlakes High School under an Alt-4 certification plan to teach computers and technology classes. And by the second year, I was their full-time business teacher, and I did that for just about 7 years. When lo and behold, this opportunity opened up to become a business administrator. It was like going back into what I'd done in industry. I was an operations and finance person, so it was like home. So that's how I ended up as a member of New Hampshire ASBO. Then when I retired from my full-time job, I was a business administrator for SAU 13, representing the small towns of Tamworth, Madison, and Freedom. All very small towns, all had one school, each had their own school board. And then we had a joint board, if you will. So I did that until June 30th, 2021, retired, and I took on this role as a part-time executive director for New Hampshire ASBO the next day after I retired. So I didn't have much of any time off. But that was okay, it was great. In 2015, I was recognized as the Business Educator of the Year, and in 2020, I was recognized as the Business Administrator of the Year. So I have 2 Eddies, very proud of that. I've been a member of several professional associations that relate to what we're talking about. Been a member of New Hampshire ASBO since November of 2014. I was on their PD committee, I was their PD committee chair for 3 years, on the executive committee for 2 years. I've been a member of ASBO International since September of 2019. I was a local chapter advisor and then on the state board for New Hampshire Future Business Leaders of America. And I was also a member of the New Hampshire Business Educators Association. So a little bit about New Hampshire ASBO.
So maybe I think you should run for state rep when you retire. No?
Thank you, no. I have a very...
We like people with this kind of experience. Right?
Yes, I understand that. It's a tough job you've got, and I'm not sure that I'm up for it. In any case, a very busy guy with 6 grandkids. I'm traveling a lot, so it would make it really difficult to do what you folks do, and certainly appreciate what you do.
All right, thank you. Go on.
So New Hampshire ASBO is an affiliate of ASBO International. It's an association supporting the profession of school business management. Our areas of responsibility include accounting and financial management, educational organization, facilities and property management, food service operations, human resources, information management, pupil transportation, and risk management. New Hampshire ASBO offers professional development opportunities supporting all of the above responsibilities, professional certifications, and ongoing mentoring and networking opportunities for our members.
Tell me about certifications.
Sure. So New Hampshire ASBO has had a certificate program for several years now, and it was tied into the licensure requirement in the state of New Hampshire when that existed. So it's built around all those competencies. We partnered with Texas ASBO, who's a much bigger state, as you know. They already had a professional certification program. We had a group of folks that got together. My predecessor led that effort to put together this program. It's 21 courses for a BA certification. 17 of those are all online, and the other 4 are in-person workshops that we present through, usually over an 18-month period. We repeat those. Although the 2-day introductory one is done every summer.
So are there different levels, or you are or you aren't?
Either you are or you aren't.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And but it's not a national certification. It's just for New Hampshire.
No, but if you look at it, where it was based upon what Texas had done, that's based on national standards, if you will. The responsibilities for business administrators in New Hampshire are very similar to what they are across every other state in the country. The models change a little bit, depending what size district you're in, it might change a little bit. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. But yeah, in general, they're based upon industry standards, if you will.
So is the national organization thinking about?
So they have a certification, SFO. They have one also, and in our professional certification program, we recognize that as allowing you to obtain your New Hampshire ASBO certification by taking only the 4 in-person workshops, which are unique to New Hampshire.
I see.
When we tailored all those other 17 courses from Texas ASBO, we had to make them New Hampshire, not Texas. And there were 4 courses that were so unique and distinct for New Hampshire that what we have instead is we collect experts in our community to come in and present on those topics to get that workshop certificate, if you will.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
So New Hampshire ASBO's mission is to ensure excellence in the practice of school business management to benefit the educational community. It's tough to ensure if people don't participate, though. New Hampshire ASBO organizational structure, we were established in 1977. We have 2 very part-time staff members, myself about 0.25 full-time equivalent, and I have an executive assistant who's about 0.35 full-time equivalent. Both of us work from home, part-time, different hours, different days. It's always a challenge. We communicate a lot via email.
This is maybe too much detail.
I'm going to get you there, but I want to make sure you understand the background of where we're coming from. New Hampshire ASBO is mostly driven by volunteers, though. You can see we have 11 people on our board, and they're the ones that do a lot of the work over and above the 2 part-time folks. Just to recap Senate Bill 57 to make sure.
How many members?
I'm sorry?
Members.
We have about 157 state members. We have about 60 affiliate members. And then we have about 30 retayees. Most districts have a BA that are members of New Hampshire ASBO. Not every district, but most school districts have members that are with New Hampshire ASBO.
Gotcha. And all of 157 are certified or no?
No, they're not all certified.
Some of them
The
are
licensure requirement, remember, was taken away a couple of years ago now. So there's no requirement. We certainly encourage it. Both the School Board Association and the Superintendent's Association have signed an MOU with New Hampshire ASBO that agree that it's a best practice to hire business administrators that are certified or eligible for certification. And we have a process for that. Okay. But not every school district does that.
And what do you mean by associate member?
Affiliate members, sponsors, vendors, if you will.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
You're welcome. So, as I understand the duties that you're facing, you have to analyze the administrative, financial, and logistical changes and outcomes from the transition from a municipal school district system to a county school district system. So I'm going to try and address some of that as we get a little further on. The next slide on committee members was just for my benefit, not for yours. I'm just trying to figure out which districts that you represent, what towns, what cities, or whatever. That sort of helped me a little bit. All right, SAU profile, and you've probably seen some of this before from the Department of Ed. number of students, number of school districts. We have about 110 SAUs, 67 of, yes.
It says 1,001.
There's a typo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That expansion we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. No, I'm sorry. My apologies. I did proofread this twice, but okay. 110, roughly, approximately 110 SAUs. 67 of those are single district SAUs. Within that, there are about 5 or so city department SAUs. It's not necessarily a school district independent, it's a department of the city. Manchester, of course, you're familiar with that, right? We have 43 multi-district SAUs, much of what you're talking about, consolidation of SAUs, that represent anywhere from 2 to 9 districts. 2 of those are cooperatives, 9 are regional. And then there's 32 charter school SAUs. The next page is just a placeholder for the last page in your handout. You should see that.
So is the 32 part of the 110?
No.
No. Okay,
No.
yes, Representative Berkey.
The charter school SAUs, do they have business administrators? Some of them or all of them?
Many of them do, and a couple of them are our members. Many of them are not.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. So the SAU map just refers to your last page in there where some of this information came from, and that's the source of that is from the Department of Ed. So BA responsibilities,
I don't see anything there.
On the last
the
page,
very last page.
the last page. The map.
Oh, okay.
And that's available on the Department of Ed website if you want
Oh,
to
I
refer
see.
back to.
I see.
All right.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That's the main reason this whole presentation's in color. The one chart alone. Figured it was a bit of an eye challenge. Anyway. So BA responsibilities, I alluded to this earlier, but accounting and financial management. At any given time, a business administrator is juggling 3 budgets per school district. So if you represent 9 school districts, you're balancing or juggling 27 budgets. So you're preparing, at this time of year, BAs are very busy meeting with their superintendents, with their school district administrators, department heads, to collect input for their fiscal year 27 budgets. At the same time, they're juggling or managing the audit process for the fiscal year 25 budgets, all while trying to keep track of expenditures and revenues for the current fiscal year 26 budget. So there's a lot of budgets, there's a lot of numbers that that BAs are trying to keep track of. BAs are also responsible for facilities and property management. At this time of year, they might be going out soliciting quotes for building work that will be going into the budget that's being prepared at this time for fiscal year 27. Food service operations, some districts outsource, some do it in-house, but typically the BA is responsible for that function. Human resources, some of your larger districts might have a director of human resource, and that person may report to the superintendent, but many times the human resources fall on the shoulders of the business administrators. In some districts, the BA is the HR person. They wear many hats, especially in the small districts. Information management, same thing. Larger districts might have a director of IT that may or may not report to the superintendent, but typically in smaller districts, that falls on the shoulders of the BA. Pupil transportation, many districts outsource, many do it themselves. Again, you might have a transportation director if you have a really large district, if you're doing it in-house, but in general, that burden falls on the shoulders of the BA. And risk management, and that certainly is something that the business administrator is coordinating and managing for the school district, or responding to in the case of when there are challenges like special assessments thrown your way.
So you keep saying that the BA is part of a district, but is it really an employee of the SAU?
It depends. If you're in a single district SAU, they're typically an employee of the district. If they're a multi-district SAU, then they're sort of like a contracted service provider. And their cost is allocated across their member districts, if you will, based upon average daily membership. And I've talked about this a little later too, average daily membership and equalized valuation. So the cost is split across the districts that are participants in that SAU.
But their boss would always be the superintendent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. The next page just talks a little bit about, depending on the size of the district and the expertise of the BA, they range from an indentured servant, if you will, all the way up to a religious like deity. And you'll find that, some districts really their BA plays a key role in managing the district. In the private sector, the superintendent's equivalent to a CEO in the private sector, and the BA would be equivalent to a CFO or a VP of finance and operations. And again, in industry, no CEO would be making any significant decisions without first referring to their right-hand person on the financial and operational impact of any of those decisions. So that's the role that BAs can play, and in many cases do play. So the next few charts, I think, finally gets to what you're looking for from us. I hope it gets to what you're looking for. The operational challenges of reducing SAUs or consolidating SAUs, the breadth of responsibilities that BAs have. BAs attend and support school board meetings. BAs are in the school buildings on a regular basis. BAs are known by the community. They're a known entity, a known face. It helps build transparency so that the community members can see that the BA is speaking facts about their district and communicating that effectively. Multi-district BAs attend anywhere from 2 to 9 school board meetings in a month. So you can imagine if you multiply that to, every district in a county, it could be quite a sizable number of school board meetings. There's geographic distances within an SAU, and of course, across a county, there's even larger geographic distances to deal with. If there were to be consolidation, you might have relocation of staff, equipment, facilities, sale or sublet of existing facilities. In some cases, the SAUs are in rented space. In some cases, like mine, we were cohabiting with one of the schools in the SAU. And then I think one of the other challenges here is, if I interpret RSA 194C2 appropriately or correctly, it seems to me like each individual district have to vote in favor of any consolidation of SAUs. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the third slide. Financial challenges.
Well, we would be, part of this would be changing things like that, right? So, yeah, we have control over what it says. Right?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
All right. Financial challenges to reducing the number of SAUs. There's various accounting software packages that are utilized by SAUs across the state. There's probably 4 or 5 different packages. So there's a challenge there. We don't currently have a standardized chart of accounts. Now, New Hampshire Ed is working on that. Over the next couple of years, we'll probably come up with a standardized one. But as of today, you couldn't just take and merge all the accounting data from all of those districts into one accounting package without great pain. And then there's that allocation of SAU costs that I talked about earlier, like in multi-district SAUs. There's that average daily membership plus equalized valuation. And then I would also question, or at least ask you to question, concern about the payback period, any return on investment it would take to make this sort of a change. Then on the third slide here, the emotional challenges.
Let me ask you a question first.
Sure.
In a city like Manchester or Nashua,
Right.
is there more than one BA?
No, but typically they have an assistant BA, and then they have a lot more staff members than the school districts have.
Okay.
So you would probably have an office of, it could be a dozen people, whereas a smaller district might have a staff of 1 or 2.
The BA does everything.
In a lot of the small districts, the BA does nearly everything.
I got you.
They might have 1 or 2. I had 3 or 4 staff members.
Now, could those people join your organization?
So
Because they
yes,
wanna
if
move
you
up or whatever,
if
yeah.
you work in an SAU and you're in a role that supports this sort of thing, yes, they can. And many of them are, by the way.
Okay.
Many of the that's why. So there's 110 roughly SAUs, and I said we have about 157 state members. About 55 or 60 of those are people that are staff members in their SAU offices. They aren't necessarily BAs.
Gotcha.
Some of them are BAs in training, by the way. Other questions before I move on?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So the emotional challenges that I see, and I think it comes down to 2 words, and that's local control. I think a lot of towns would have a hard time giving up control. I'll give you an example. The 3 little towns I represented right before I got hired, they did a study to see if they could create a cooperative school district as opposed to a multi-district SAU. And what they learned after a year's study was they couldn't cooperate enough to develop a cooperative school district. And every one of them always came back to the same thing. They didn't want somebody else from another town making a decision on their little first grader being sent on a school bus for an hour and a half to some neighboring town because the joint or cooperative school decided to close their little elementary school. So I think local control is the biggest challenge you'll have. And I would also, draw your attention to the fact that the recent trend has been to migrate away from multi-district SAUs. And I use towns and these aren't the only ones, by the way, there are a few before that. I think some of you are familiar with some of those that were part of that. So towns like Rollinsford is, I think, the most recent one, Stratford, Nottingham Hill, Wakefield. Others have studied breaking away from their SAU and have decided that it wasn't worth the effort. Some decided they didn't want to, and it happened anyway. So, local control, I think, is what I would want to share with you from my perspective is the biggest challenge I see. Having sat in so many school board meetings for several years and hearing from town folks, even those little towns. And by the way, the smaller the town, the more local control matters.
Okay, so what the people in your organization do is the administrative tasks, but not the academic tasks.
That's correct.
Right? And so academics includes, hiring teachers, how do you teach, curriculum,
Right.
discipline, all
That's the
that kind of
superintendent's
stuff.
job.
That's the superintendent,
Right.
right? So when you're talking about this local control stuff, are you thinking about it more for the academic tasks or for the business tasks? or
Managing money.
Everything.
Managing money is a local control issue.
I see.
And it does, by the way, I would say also the academics. You try and close a school or you try and reduce a teacher headcount by one. Now you're going to have a class instead of 20 in a class, you're going to have a class of 35 or whatever, because you consolidated classes.
Well, in our case, it would go from 11 to 22, but anyway.
So understand that Manchester and Nashua are exceptions. Most of the state is smaller schools, smaller districts, smaller student populations, and class size really matters in those small schools. I think that's probably why you'll see that the cost of per pupil cost is a little higher in rural districts than it is in the cities. So I understand why you're trying to pursue this initiative, but it would really have an impact on all those local small school districts.
Gotcha. Okay. Other questions from the committee? No? We're quiet today. All right, Representative Land.
Thank you, and thank you for presenting this. It sounds like you take this very seriously and very professionally, which is something we'd like to see throughout the state
Thank you.
in our districts. Mike, it sounds to me that you are defending the decision for local control to have higher spending in order to accommodate the local desires for more schools in more communities and lower class sizes in those communities. I guess my
I'm
question
not
is,
sure I agree with that necessarily, but
okay, sorry.
I'll clarify.
Yes, I'm
In
just
my-
trying to understand the balance between the desire for.
In my experience, the local communities want that local control.
Okay, thank you. And you're simply stating that as a fact,
As an observation.
as an observation.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's one of those areas where I'm trying to understand this whole issue around how it's funded and how it's managed
Right.
and trying to square the circle here. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Murphy, then Representative Troy.
Thank you. So you've got a lot of experience in business, a great deal of education in business, and I'm going to rely on that for a second. The fundamental problem from my perspective is that we're paying more than ever to educate fewer kids than we've had in a generation, maybe two generations. Enrollment is down, I think, 16% in the last 20 years. And this is clearly unsustainable, especially when the state is being asked to pick up a more and more and more of a share of the expense. My question is, if not consolidation to achieve economies of scale, which was the whole point of this committee,
Right.
what in your experience would lead us to decreasing administrative costs? Because the money hasn't gone to teachers, the frontline people, it's gone to the administrators. What would you recommend, in your experience, to restore administrative costs to what it was 20 years ago with inflation? What is going to bring that down? Because that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of your administrative costs are a result of legislation. And I think if you can get back to a core where your teachers are being recognized for what they're doing, hold them accountable, hold your schools accountable. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some consolidation. I think by the county is at an extreme change, though, and would be very challenging to implement. But the problem is, again, even if you said that you're going to change the law, that requires voter support. And I don't know that you're going to get that from the local communities, the small towns that have that desire for local control. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying I think it's going to be really challenging. Again, without the support of the communities, I agree that, it would seem to make sense that we want to try and reduce our costs. But there's also a lot of those challenges that I've shared with you that you're going to have to deal with, and that the community is going to have to deal with. Again, if you have somebody making a decision about a little first grader going on a bus for an hour and a half each day to and from school because they're closing their little elementary school, because it just doesn't make sense to have a school for a class population or student population of 45. We have schools like that in New Hampshire, smaller schools that exist just to support a student population of less than 50 kids. But their alternative is to sit on a bus to a neighboring town. And at least from my perspective, the local towns have not been willing to make that decision. And it's their decision, I guess, if it's their dollars, right? That's the way the law is currently.
Do you think it's understood at the local level that there is a correlation between local control and local funding? And the extent to which the state is asked to pick up the cost, that's the extent to which the state is going to feel obligated to regulate and to try to achieve efficiencies.
Right. At this point in time, that's a large share of the cost of running a school district comes from the local community. Even the state tax comes from the local community. It's sent to the state and then just sent back again.
It's the same money.
Right. It's the same money. So it's not like we're getting money from the state. We're not. We're getting some from the feds that might be routed through the state, but most of the money comes from the local community. And I'm not saying that the local communities always make the best decisions. I can tell you from experience they don't necessarily. However, isn't that local community control? Isn't that what they're all about? At least here in New Hampshire. It's different in other states, but here in New Hampshire.
Okay. Representative Dry.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. When I look at all the different groups of people who have responsibilities, I kind of think of the business administrator as one that would be the most portable, because I think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that there's kind of less interaction with the students and the relationship building that we've heard about from other people. And we've talked a little bit about examples of states where it was a county run SAU. But I wonder is there any job that you could do countywide that would save anything?
I think consolidating at the county level is just going to add another layer of management. I don't think it solves any problems. I'm not sure you're going to save an awful lot of money. There might be some economies of scale, but I don't know if it's worth all the effort that you're going to put in. Now you're going to have a manager at the county level where there's no, at least in my observation, no real infrastructure to support that position. You'd have to create that, right? And then does that person still report to the superintendent, or do they report to the county? And if they report to the county, what control does the county have over what funding goes to each individual school district?
So you may not be aware of this, but counties have county executives.
I understand.
And the sheriff, the county attorney, the nursing home, all that sort of stuff
I understand.
are under the county executive, right? And the state representatives in the county are the legislative body for the county, right? And so why can't the superintendent be like the county attorney, like the county sheriff, and so on? And then all the county administrative mechanism, personnel, HR, payroll, accounting, all this kind of stuff can be common, no?
Again, facing the challenges that I've outlined here, I think that would be really tough to accomplish. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying I think there's a lot of challenges that make that. My apologies.
No, go ahead.
So,
Be specific.
okay. So I'll give an example. municipal financial or fiscal management versus school district fiscal management is a very different animal. We've had some folks make that transition from the town side to the school district side. And in several cases, they've left within a year's time because they just found the job overwhelming. It's a very different animal than fiscal management for the municipality and for the county. It's a whole different set of disciplines that you don't necessarily have at the town level or at the county level. You'd have to bring that all in. So and again, with all of the, well, business administrators, you're right, don't typically interact with students, although some have had to fill in here and there for bus drivers on occasion. But in general, they don't interact with students all that much. Although when they do, it's a refreshing break from the challenges of our job to be able to see the kids and to see why we do what we do. But we're interacting with the schools, the school administrative teams on a regular basis, on a daily basis. When there's a building project going on, the business administrator frequently is there in the building. So if you have a county seat and now you're trying to serve all of the communities, all the school buildings in that county, you've got a large breadth of responsibility now. Now you're going to have more staff members to be able to, because one business administrator can't attend, 15 school board meetings every month. It's hard enough to attract somebody to attend 3 or 4 school board meetings a month. It's very tough to fill these positions. So I think that would be an additional challenge that would really make it more difficult to consolidate.
Now, you said that the reason that you said to Senator Murphy that the reason we have more administration is legislative changes, right?
Federal, including federal
federal.
changes,
Okay.
right?
So, are we talking about what are the big? Can you name like the top 3 items that have caused significant
Any of the
administrative bloat?
Yeah, any of the reporting we do for Department of Ed, that a lot of that reporting is stipulated by even just managing grants. By the way, takes a lot of time.
So in the old days, there weren't grants?
Well, life was a little simpler way back when. I haven't been a BA for that many years, by the way. I've only been in public education for 15 years or so. Some of my members have been around for 30 plus years and have a little more experience than I have. But in general, and I'm not just saying in the business office, by the way, there are more administrators outside of the business office than there used to be. And you'd probably be better suited to talk to a superintendent about that question than you would be with me. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. So again, can you name any particular specifics? The such and such report, we never had to fill it out in those days.
Again, I don't go that far back, so I can't really tell you those specifically. But I hear people talking about administrative costs going up. They've had to hire administrative folks to help support, student needs or whatever, and it's based upon whatever. I don't have all the details.
Can you get me a couple of names of people who have been in your organization for longer than you?
I'll get a couple names to you. I'm not going to get them off the top of my head now. I want to make sure they're willing first.
I understand.
But yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Did I see Representative Bricky's hand? Yes.
So I don't know if I have a question, just an observation. We keep talking about economy of scales, and do you believe, I guess I'll ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that if we were to consolidate SAUs, even the county level or whatever we decide, that we would not have to hire any extra people?
Do I believe that?
Yes.
No, I don't believe that.
So then economy of scales may not be the outcome that could be brought on.
I haven't done any, math to calculate all that, but I don't believe you're going to necessarily save staff. You might consolidate some, but every school district has separate collective bargaining agreements. Somebody's got to manage that payroll. Each one's different.
So would we be able to eliminate some people?
Possibly. You might have to hire some more seasoned, higher level people to help manage the ones that you're keeping. And the other question is, are you going to move everybody to a county seat somewhere? And if you are, how many people are going to be willing to do that?
Thank you.
Let me
We are going to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. We are going to get some information about those places that have consolidated to see if they actually saved any money. Yes? I'm asking you. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So some of the states that have already tried this and,
Oh, I see. Yes, I think we're looking into that particular.
okay, thanks.
Let me ask you in this way. So I was talking last night to a school board member who has a one district SAU, small, right? 2 schools. And they have in their administrative area one person who does like a third of their time is grant writing, a third is transportation, and a third is something else, which I don't remember.
Right.
Maybe food service, I think, or something like that, right?
Right.
Isn't it likely that if you have a full-time grant person, right, they would be more efficient on the grant task than 3 such people who are wearing these 3 hats?
Possibly. Typically, your grant writing comes out of the individual schools with partnership with the business office to sit down and figure out the financial impact of that grant, what the costs will be to put together a budget for it. And that all has to be done before it's submitted for approval from the state or wherever else the grant application is being submitted to. So there's an interaction between direct school staff and the business office for every grant.
Right.
So in theory,
And the same question. I mean, so again, somebody who does 100% transportation, right? Aren't they going to be better at it than 3 people who do a third of transportation? You see what I mean? And couldn't they make bigger contracts, right? Have a make contracts with larger bus companies or give the bus company larger routes and this kind of thing.
maybe. Again, a lot of the challenges come up with student transportation on a daily basis are local to that community. And so somebody there on site is dealing with that rather than calling up, a central office and at the county level and saying, hey, we got a problem. It's going to have to be somebody local that addresses that because they know the neighborhoods, they know the kids. So again, I'm not saying that you can't benefit from some consolidation, but I don't know that the numbers add up. I'm not sure that there's really what the bottom line would be. Somebody would have to figure that out.
Okay.
I will say that when you have 2 districts in an SAU and one decides to separate or split off from their partner school district in the SAU, that oftentimes that it increases costs and it also creates ultimate challenges in trying to attract a superintendent and a business administrator for that tiny school district.
Gotcha. Okay. Representative Lamb.
Thank you. It first caught my attention when you said that there's 4 to 5 different accounting packages, and right now you can't merge the accounting across the state from different districts and SAU.
Not easily.
Not easily.
Right.
That you need some sort of Rosetta Stone to do that. And then your comment that the municipal fiscal management and the school fiscal management are very different also concerned me. Mm-hmm. Could you explain to me why school accounting and financial management is so different from municipal management?
So our funding sources come from 3 different places, basically. You've got most of it from the local community through local property tax. You've got state property tax really comes from the local community anyway. Then you've got federal money, and then grants.
Sorry, is that leaving out the adequate education? Are you including the adequate education grant as a grant or as state funding? Because unless a town is collecting the full amount of the
Right.
state match, they are receiving additional money from the state that isn't collected from the local taxpayers.
Okay. I want to argue that point.
Okay. But you're saying that there's additional grants as well from the state?
From a
Beyond
variety
the
of different
adequate?
sources.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a difference of funding mechanisms.
Right.
Is that the only difference? between
Reporting.
The reporting as well?
Reporting, yes, is challenging. I will just tell you that most people who've come across from the town side or the city side have had a very difficult time adapting to our environment, and most of them don't. A couple have succeeded, by the way, but most of them do not. They decide to move on. They find the job too challenging. So again, it comes down to local. It's I've gone over my time, I realize here, so.
I'm just trying to understand how we can have such a complex one, and then we have some districts, like we heard in another meeting yesterday, that they're not able to keep up with the school district financial management for whatever reason. And if it's far more complex than municipal management, then we have a really big problem here.
It's the funding mechanisms we deal with, right? I mean, there's some districts that choose not to accept grant money just because it's too much of a pain in the neck to manage it.
And I guess if you have any information on what the cost return for the federal grants and for the federal mandates, that would be helpful as
Yeah,
well.
nothing off the top of my head.
thank you.
Again, I haven't been a working BA for 4.5 years now, so I have to draw my members.
Representative Dry.
Thank you. Let me ask you a numbers question. Do you, we heard about superintendents lasting maybe 5 years around here in a job, but maybe nationally 2.8 years. Is there a similar kind of number for business administrators?
We have a fair amount of churn in the BA ranks. Each year, we typically draw in about 8 to 12 new BAs each year, about 10% churn each year. So I have some BAs that have been in their role for 30 plus years. Others have been, less than a year. And there's some districts that churn more than others. A lot of it comes down to training, support for their BAs or the lack thereof.
Do you have any idea of maybe the average length of someone stays in a position around?
I haven't done the math. No, I'm sorry, I don't.
All right, well, thank you. I guess we will move on, and you'll get me those names.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bates. Okay, next we have from Nottingham School Board, Ms. Levinson. Welcome.
Chair.
Representative Ricky.
Just a moment of personal preference. I forgot to say that Representative Damon could not make it today. She had a family emergency.
Oh, I'm sorry to
She
hear that.
apologizes for that. I'm so sorry. I meant to say that at the beginning.
I saw Representative Luno yesterday, so maybe that situation is under control. I don't know.
I don't know. I hope.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Levinson.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time today to have me here. Nottingham is a small town in Rockingham County, about 5,300 total population. The school has about 800 students. The school district has about 800 students, including a little over 200 in high school. We tuition our students with long-term tuition contracts to Co-Brown Northwood Academy and to Dover Senior High School. Those are long-standing relationships. We were part of SAU 44. It was 3 districts: Stratford, Northwood, Nottingham. Nottingham had the similarly sized towns, but Nottingham had the highest valuation and it had the highest enrollment, which still continues today. I looked recently at all that data. So based on the apportionment, we were paying about 55%. At the SAU, we had obviously our superintendent, you had your student services director, but at our school locally, we were in our local operating budget providing curriculum director, food service director, we had a student services coordinator, so we had a lot of these things that maybe typically would come out of an SAU. We had them locally, so we were paying for that as well. The manner in which we would determine the SAU budget had to be, a consensus, if you will, between 3 different towns that had slightly different ideas. And then we would all pay our portion of it. So we'd have one line that entered into our operating budget locally to support our portion of that. One of the schools decided that they wished to leave SAU 44, and that changed the dynamic a bit. And so at that point, we started looking at the fact that we had so much internally already. And so what we would need to do is to provide the financial piece, obviously the superintendent piece, and we'd be looking at the student services director. And so we went ahead, we went through the process. There's a 1-year planning period. You bring the data to the town, they vote, and then we had a 1-year transition period. So it was a pretty heavy lift. Very interesting. You learn a lot. And what we found is that we now have our preschoolers in our school. Those are students that in many cases need services. So we're getting those students integrated into our school earlier. They're seeing the school climate and culture, and they're there and integrated. The teachers see them and they're fostering all those bonds. We don't have to send them to, up the road, which for some families is a good 40 minutes for young children. So that has been a big bonus for us. And the other thing I think about Nottingham that everybody that comes to our school district notices is that we have a phenomenal group of administrators in our building. They work together well. Our teachers work so hard with our students. Our achievement results are, indicative of that. We have very good results. The board takes those results very seriously. I hear people talking about reporting, but it is necessary. If you're using taxpayer dollars, you do need to report, and you need to ensure that the students are getting what they need. So for us, it has been, work to get to this point. We're just starting our 4th year, and I think we're settling in. And at this point, we are moving to our current superintendent just started with us. It's going to be 65% time. This is a retired superintendent, just retired this past year. And the plan is to develop our local administrators to take that next career step and remain in the district. And they're very excited about it as well. So our next superintendent will come from within the ranks of our school. So that's basically where we are right now.
Let me make sure I'm clear on this. You said you were once with an SAU with 3.
Yes.
And then 1 left. Is that
Yes.
right? So now you're with just one
We're
of
a
the 10.
single district, so it's Nottingham School District.
Oh, you left.
We
Are the
ended-
other 2 still together?
Nope.
Or no. Or all 3 went
All
their own-
3 were together. In fact, the history of that SAU is, it was much bigger, and over the years, people, districts fractured out. I think Barrington had been there, many districts in that area. So Stratford decided to go first, and they were really looking at the fiscal piece of it, and they were looking at that control. And then we looked at it and said, gosh, now our apportionment is going to be even higher, and we already have all these pieces in place locally. So we decided the following year that we would
I
do
see.
it. So now it's 3 separate districts. No animosity, nothing like that. But it was just really more of a business decision, I would say. And the desire to have everything that we can closest to our students, because that's our responsibility, and that's where you can really make gains, is if you're pointing everything toward what your students need, being a good employer, making sure your staff has what they need, and we work hard at that. Our contract provides for planning time. Our teachers do not have duties. They take their time. They work in professional learning communities. We do professional development, and they have plenty of time to plan. Nottingham was one of the first districts in the state to do, at the time, RTI was response to intervention. We were a pilot school back probably in 2009, and then it became response to instruction, and now we're looking at MTSS. But generally, we have that down, and our teachers use data, and our results, again, are reflective of it, and our community is supportive.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Did I hear you say you have 5,300 residents in Nottingham and over 500 K through 8 students?
We have a pre-K through 8 school now with about 520 students in it. And then the balance, we have, I think we have 25 homeschool students, and the balance, we've got 177 at Co-Brown and 91 at Dover.
Okay. But do you know, you said pre-K, how much is that? Do you know?
I actually did bring that.
Is it 50 or something?
This is, I'm sorry?
50 maybe, or?
Yeah, it's probably about that.
Okay.
And it's growing, and the needs are becoming more complex. And I guess that's a statewide phenomenon. So at our pre-K, on September 1 of last year, it was 28. And now at the end of last year, these numbers are from the end of last year, 34. We'll be getting updated numbers at our next meeting for this September.
Okay. So it's on the K through 8 must be roughly 500, maybe slightly under.
It's about 517 according to our June 30th report.
Gotcha. Okay. Because in the back of my mind, I constantly compare everything to my town, right? Which is 10% smaller than yours. Okay. But the number of students equivalent to your 500 is 370. Okay. So you've got way more families in your town than we do in ours. It's interesting.
We have a lot of developments going in as we speak. We've got probably 4 active developments heading in. Nottingham has a lot of land mass, and they're starting to utilize it for building. We've had a lot of growth.
I see. Gotcha. Okay. Now you didn't talk about money. So what have you seen in terms of your administrative expenses from before versus after?
When we were in the group, SAU, we were paying about $800,000. But we were also paying for some of the services, for instance, a curriculum director that would typically come out of an SAU. So we were also paying for that locally. Initially, our costs were a little higher than we had anticipated. So we were running about the same or a little higher because we made a decision. Initially, we wanted to go with a part-time superintendent, and we also looked at the idea of having a full-time person that would share some roles. But in order to ensure that we had a smooth transition, we decided to go with a full-time superintendent. So we did that. That upped the cost a little bit. We ran with that for 3 years, and this year we're hitting our groove, and we'll have that 65% time. And our administrators are already looking at the roles and how they can share things. So our next superintendent will be a full-time person, but with other responsibilities as well.
Other question? No, I'm not seeing much. So I guess your basic message is you like the way things are now. Yeah?
We do like it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It has been cost effective, and it's really important, we think, to be close to the students. I was listening to the former presentation, and the business administrators do provide a very important function. You don't typically think of business around school districts, but my background is in accounting. I've taken the classes that NASBO offers. I'm on the last one of the 17. So it is different from what you find in the private sector. And a superintendent that had been around for many years said to me about 6 years ago, you really have to have that building block and have your financial house in order, as we're seeing. It's very important because it will ripple through everything. So those are very important roles. And it is important to have those close to you because they have to build that budget and they have to manage that budget. And I do think it's wonderful that the state is going to build a more uniform chart of accounts because that is something that you really need to be sure you're hitting the right account and so forth, or you're going to have an issue. You should never have surprises. You may have a surprise with a student or what have you, but you need to have those capital reserve accounts set up and you need to know where you are. So
Yeah.
those are important roles.
Okay. I happened to last night speak at length to a school board member from Barrington, which I think was part of your group
Yes.
at one time. And she talked to me about how they left and they liked it and so on, right? And later I looked up the finances for Barrington, right? And compared to ours in Epsom, so much better under $20,000 a kid compared to over 26, close to 27,000, right? So, so there's something to be said. I'm concerned that we're hearing from the ones, you know, the successful. I understand that the successful ones, like her, like you, and so on, don't want changes, right? Things are going well, but the average is not great. You see what I mean? There's lots of other places where you know, take Claremont, right? I mean, there's lots of other places where things are not going that great, right?
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
that's something we have to be concerned about.
Yes,
Yeah.
Claremont was clearly all financial, and I don't obviously know the details of exactly what happened there, but there didn't seem to be it just, you know, it mushroomed out of control apparently, so hopefully that will resolve itself for
Yeah.
those students, but
All right. Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay. And next we have Mr. Green from the DOE to talk about testing and measurement. Yes,
You hold on for 1 second.
yes, well,
Chuck is leaving and I need to speak to him.
okay. You want to take a short
Can we take 5 minutes?
5-minute bio break here? All right, we'll come back at 10:40.
Thank you so much. Tracy Burton.
All right, so we're all back here. By the way, I looked up Nottingham here, and they're a super duper district, right? They're New Hampshire average in this test score area is like 55% on this SAS score. They're at 67%, and their spending is way under average, right? So their spending is a little under 20,000 a kid, and average is more like 22.5 or something like that. So they're doing an excellent job in Nottingham, and I'm not surprised they don't want to change. So, all right, all right. We had a request, and without objection from the committee, for an extra person to come talk to us today. So this is a change to the agenda, and that is Kathy Stacy from the New Hampshire Association of Counties. All right.
So we're not going to hear from Mr. Green?
We will hear, but he's waiting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate your courtesy. So obviously, I'm here representing the Association of Counties, and we just have questions, obviously, that we're concerned about, and we'd just like to pose to the committee for you to think about. So when we're looking at the school units changing from, which is really 141, because when you take the privates and the charter schools and so forth down to 10, possibly 12 if we do a carve out for Manchester and Nashua. So we're curious if the committee is thinking about.
So just hold on. I don't think charter schools are necessarily part of what we're talking about here. So
Okay, but they're part of the SAU. They have an SAU number. That's all I'm saying, is they do have an
not
SAU
in
number.
the.
Public. Is that what you?
Yeah,
no,
right.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about 100 SAUs or
101?
110, 104,
Okay.
various numbers.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Either way, so we're wondering, the superintendents, if you're considering if they're going to be elected or appointed. If elected countywide, are they going to be required to have credentials? Obviously, most county officials, other than the county attorney, need no credentials to run. If they're going to be appointed, who's going to appoint them? Again, credentials. Who determines it? What entity? Do they become an official of the county? If so, where are they going to be housed? Who has oversight? Who do they report to? Is it the commissioners, who I don't really think have the expertise with regards to schools? But I mean, obviously, for budget purposes, as you know, it falls on the state reps from Rockingham County, in my county. So who's going to fund it? You know, we have concerns about 28A and downshifting of costs. Who's going to pay for salary, healthcare, retirement, all that stuff? Will the county budget now include schools? Or will the individual districts govern themselves like they do in many, many states? How would our rural counties pay for this? Because obviously they struggle more so than a Rockingham County or a Hillsborough County or a Merrimack County. Who selects curriculum? What about special needs? What will the role be of elected school boards in each district? Who has fiscal oversight of the superintendent and the districts? There's a need to recognize separate and distinct needs for different areas in each county. Will education remain a state duty as required under Part 2, Article 83 of the New Hampshire Constitution? Would the county government then be subject to litigation under Part 2, Article 83? Obviously a concern for us. Would current assets be transferred to the counties, and how would the current structures be reimbursed for acquiring those assets? And of course, this becomes more complicated if the facilities were, bonded financing to purchase buildings and equipment. So I come from.
So I can tell you, I believe that SAUs do not own serious property. They don't own buildings or anything like that.
The
They might
district
have.
does. The district does?
The districts do, and
Right.
and so they might have desks and computers,
Yeah.
but they don't have real estate.
So then I guess you determine the districts stay autonomous. Is that right? If you're saying the district owns, they gonna stay as they are now?
So we're not. So we're considering reducing the number of SAUs and changing the mix of what do superintendents are responsible for, what are school districts responsible for, what are schools responsible for, right? So, all those things you're mentioning, those are all our concerns, right? I mean, that's what we're considering. But let me ask you, so we'd like input from you, right? Not just questions. So tell us about, to what extent, you said nobody has somebody who's elected, let's say the county attorney or the county sheriff or whatever, right? In some sense, they're under the county executive, right? Or they're,
We are the executive. I don't report to the commissioners. I'm a register of deeds for Rockingham County.
okay,
I don't report to the Board of Commissioners.
okay. But somehow the commissioners have some say over what happens in your office? No?
Budget.
By budget?
Budget.
Okay, fine. So they're like the business, like Mr. Bates you were listening to,
Yes.
right? They're like the business person for your office.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. But the operation of your office, that's you, right?
Correct.
So the equivalent in the school domain would be the business activity of the school versus the academic activity of the school. Okay, all right. So and so what I'm contemplating is that the superintendent at the bigger level, county or whatever size, would be the business person. Okay, and the academic person would be the school boards. Okay.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a little different than what we're talking about now, because right now the superintendent is the everything.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
And so, anyways, but the other thing I want to compliment you in Rockingham County, I'm from Merrimack County, okay? And so my understanding is your tax rate is like $1 a thousand or less, right?
Correct.
And we're at like 250 or something. I don't know what we're at, but so you're doing something. We're constantly hearing from the people who are doing things right, and so their message to us is don't change anything. But you see, we have to think about.
Right. But that's not my
bigger
message.
picture. Yeah,
That's
okay.
not my message.
Okay.
That is not my message. Don't do anything. It
Okay.
isn't my message.
Okay.
I come from Salem. We have 8 schools. I have a superintendent who is paid very well. I may feel differently than other people, but our per student is 18,300 per student. But it's a big district. It's a big town.
Right. And for New Hampshire, that's terrific, right? That's cheap. For Utah, that would be ridiculously expensive, right?
Correct.
So there's room for improvement, I guess, even in the $18,000
Yeah.
place, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Did you have other things you wanted to say?
No, that was pretty much it. I mean,
But
obviously,
all those questions we know them, and they're open questions, right? I mean, they're things we have to think about.
yeah,
right?
and obviously, we'd love to come and participate as much as you'd want us to participate, because
Sure.
if you have questions with regards to how we do it, what we do,
Yeah.
we're here to give you any information you need.
Yeah. And so it seems likely to me, this is such a big deal, that if we were to take this step, right, there would have to be a planning phase, right? So where work out the details, not among the 5 of us,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Somewhere else. Right?
Yes.
Anyways, Representative Dry.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Could you tell us a little bit about your association? Maybe that would give me a better handle on.
Sure. The New Hampshire Association of Counties is made up of all 10 counties. We meet on a monthly basis, and basically we obviously look at legislation that affects county government, because there's quite a bit that does, especially nursing homes, right? So, the departments that we're involved in obviously is the nursing home right? County attorney, the sheriff, the Department of Corrections, which is huge, the Registry of Deeds, Human Resources. And basically we meet monthly and talk about issues that are arising, if there's things that we need to be paying attention to, like what's happening at this committee. And we work as an association really with, like, say, the Registry of Deeds as a, so there's 10 of us. We will meet on a regular basis to talk about issues that are arising and happening within our departments. Same thing with Human Resources. Everybody trying to really help each other so that if somebody's faced with an issue, they have somebody that they can get mentoring from or whatever they need. And pretty much the other thing that's huge with the counties is the Corrections Academy, because we are able to license our new corrections officers ourselves.
So when you say we meet, is it people of the same office?
When I say we, I mean, so there's 10 counties, and in each county on our board, there's 5 members from each board. So it could be your county commissioners, it could be, they could have a representative who's the Department of Corrections, but we have a 50-member executive committee that meets monthly.
So they send 5 representatives?
Correct.
Does it change all the time, or is
No,
the
it
same
doesn't.
people?
They usually, and it's up to the Board of Commissioners to determine who they want to represent their county. They will vote it, and then they send it to us, and it has to, obviously we obviously say yes or no, and it's always yes. I mean, we're gonna go with whatever the county wants, the person to represent them.
Okay. And it sounds like also people of the same department or same title seem to get together and discuss things.
Yes, outside of the regular association meeting, every month, like the Register of Deeds affiliate, we call ourselves, we meet to talk about issues that are happening. Maybe every month, it might not be, maybe every other month. But the nursing home affiliate, like right now, is very busy because there is a huge number of pieces of legislation that are going to affect how they do business at the nursing homes, right? That's the biggest department at the county and the most expensive, right? Because we also have responsibilities outside of the county for funding.
Thank you.
All right, so you intrigued me. I'm going to ask you a question off topic here. Tell me about this corrections academy. So you're not sending people to police standards and training?
No, we have our own, we have able, and I believe, Jim, it's through legislation, isn't it? That we are able to certify our own officers because we can't get into police standards and training. And we've been doing this for years.
What do you mean you can't get into?
It was a point in time where there was just, they only have so many slots to be able to do these particular academies.
Oh, I see.
And years ago, it got to the point where we couldn't attend. So that we were like the bottom of the totem pole. So what ended up happening was we went to legislature and said, we got a problem here. We need to be able to do something here in order to make sure that we have enough correctional officers in our facilities who are trained and trained properly. And so basically, we hold academies. You're with Merrimack County?
Merrimack County.
Yeah, because we hold them in Merrimack County.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Merrimack County corrections people are in these classes too? or-
absolutely.
Oh, I see.
Absolutely, yep. So any new hires that Merrimack County would bring on, they would have to go to the academy to be certified before they can become, on the floor in these correctional facilities.
So I believe police standards and training doesn't charge you for their service, no?
Oh, I think they do. I don't know, Jim.
Just thank you. I'm Jim Monahan.
Okay.
I've been working with counties for 100 years.
Long
Yeah. Yes. So Register Stacy identified the problem that many years ago was resolved.
Can you speak a little bit closer?
Yeah, the issue was resolved many years ago when the legislature worked with the county governments to legislatively establish the Corrections Standard Board, and so. It's important to understand that the role of a corrections officer is quite different than a police officer. So the training is different. There's national standards that we comply with, and so the distinct professions have distinct training and certifications processes. But we do each county that sends a corrections officer for certification training, they have to pay for them to go to pay for and we rent at a very affordable, I shouldn't tell you this, affordable price from Merrimack County. We rent space in the old nursing home building. I forget the name of that building, but there's a classroom space
Yeah,
there
yeah.
that's used 3 or 4 times a year. You know, with the churn of corrections officers, we're probably certifying maybe 100.
But that wasn't my question.
yeah.
The state has police standards and training, right? And we train, I think, we train our own state corrections officers, right? And state troopers and police officers and all this sort of stuff.
Certainly, the police standards and training trains police officers for the state and local communities send folks. I don't know if the state prison correctional
I'm pretty
officers
sure
go
they
through-
do.
They may well,
Okay.
I don't know, but they don't go through the county program.
Okay, and I believe we don't charge municipalities for training these officers. We do?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting because I remember, I haven't been on this in 10 plus years, and I remember there was a time when the state was picking, obviously the municipality was paying the officer their salary, right? But in terms of, and maybe personal expenses, but in terms of tuition, there wasn't a tuition. But maybe that's changed. I don't know.
It's different because I know that my understanding is different because my sheriff, I know, sends his people, his deputies to the
Right.
academy. He pays to send them to the academy on top of their
He pays some kind
salary.
of tuition.
Correct.
Okay, I'll find out about that. Thank you very much. All right,
you.
this was a total aside because I moved back to Division 2, so I'm interested in this kind of thing. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, there was a time when we didn't charge any tuition to the officers themselves, but Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, and so on do, right? And so that's why we lose a lot of people to those states. Anyways, okay. Any other questions for Ms. Stacy? No? Thank you very much. Okay, now we go back to Mr. Green.
Some handouts here.
Okay, and I need one for the file here. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's do that.
Did you get one for here?
Yes. What's that?
Thank
Rhode Island, okay.
All right. Good morning or afternoon. I'm not sure exactly. Are we? We're just about there. Yeah. For the record, my name is Dr. Nate Green. I work with the New Hampshire Department of Education. I'm the Division Director for Education, Analytics, and Resources, which oversees 6 bureaus at the department, one of which is the Bureau of Assessment and Accountability. And that's what I'm here to talk to your committee today about. Just a quick overview of the 3 handouts that you have in front of you. The one that looks a little bit less formal, that's a chart of numbers here. This is just New Hampshire data. It's roughly 10 years, although you'll notice as you go through the years, we're missing 2020 there. That was the pandemic year. We didn't administer assessments because during our normal assessment window, kids weren't in schools. And so we didn't have an opportunity to administer assessments that year. So there's a bit of a gap there. This is organized by state average up at the top. You can see math and reading SAT scores there. Those are averages for each year. And then going down, you have districts as well as charter school districts. And I say charter school districts because sometimes you might have an individual charter school there, or you might have an organization of charter schools. And so if there is a charter school group that might have more than one high school, that would be combined here. Although I don't believe that's the case in any of this particular data.
Representative Bricky?
So this is just 11th grade.
This is just 11th grade.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep. The difference between this and then the College Board report that says New Hampshire, College Board meets with the department every year, and they give us their report on the state of New Hampshire SAT, as well as PSAT 8-9, PSAT 10, and PSAT 10 and MSQT. And this looks at every student who is in the 2025 graduating class who took one of those College Board tests in New Hampshire. That includes both public and private school students. It includes students who took it as part of the state accountability system, but also students who took it a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth time, depending on how many times a particular student and their parents decided they needed to take the SAT. I can tell you my own daughter, who is now a freshman at UNH, took it more than one time. She was trying to get her scores up there in New Hampshire. So the difference being this chart here, this is one attempt by every 11th grade student in New Hampshire who took the test during their 11th grade year. This one is encompassing any New Hampshire resident student at any New Hampshire school, public and private, who took the SAT or PSAT or PSAT 10.
And you just do a random sample of 11th grade students, right? You're not doing...
No,
doing
so
100%?
we're required by the U.S. Department of Education to test every student.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There is a caveat there in that New Hampshire has a state law allowing for parent opt-out. And so when you take a look at the data here, there's a little bit of kind of a push and pull between, I would say, New Hampshire and U.S. Department of Ed, because U.S. Department of Ed, tells us, hey, you have to test every student as a condition of these federal monies you're receiving. And New Hampshire says, we're going to do our best attempt to do that, understanding that New Hampshire allows for parent opt-out with the test. We generally
Is that
test.
1% or something? Is that
It's roughly about 18%. So we test about 82% of the state.
really that many opt out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Very
relatively high. There's a question of whether or not all of those parents of the students who aren't taking the SAT have truly opted their student out, or whether the student on the day of the SAT decided they weren't going to take the test, and in which case it's hard to sit a kid down in front of the computer and force them to take the SAT. So there is some individual student opt-out that occurs in all of our assessments, but we do have a higher than normal amount of opt-outs with the SAT versus when we look at our third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade tests. We tend to test 93 to 94% of our students in lower grades, and it gets closer to 82, 83% in 11th grade.
Do you have a sense of why so many opt out?
I think there are some students who they may have already determined their career path. Maybe they're not thinking of going on to a 2 or 4 year school. They're thinking, the SAT isn't something I'm going to need in order to be successful. You might have students that are in CTE programs or welding programs where they know they're going into this career path. And so for them, it might not, for that individual student, they might not see it as relevant to them. Some students just don't like to take a test. We have never done a survey of the students who have opted out of the test to try to determine, what are the reasons why individual students aren't taking the test.
But you're saying it's the parents who opt out, not, well.
So we have a state law. So when you look at, and I put that state law out there because when you look at Rhode Island, I've included their report here as well. Rhode Island, similarly to New Hampshire, requires the SAT. If you notice on the first page, or actually, and I apologize, the College Board reports don't have page numbers, but the page that has the pie charts, so I think it's like page 4, you can see their SAT participation rate is 99%. And then if you take a look at the same page on the New Hampshire report, ours is 76%. And I would say one of the biggest differences is that Rhode Island does not have a parent opt-out and New Hampshire does. And so there's an allowance there where there may be more state accountability tied to those students being required to take that test in Rhode Island as opposed to New Hampshire.
Interesting.
And again, that there could be other factors that are involved in that, but that is one of the differences between the way in which this is given in New Hampshire and the way it's given in Rhode Island.
So I'm getting the impression that were we to require everyone to take the test, the scores would be lower. Do you think that's true?
It's difficult to determine. There are some students that may have already taken the SAT, and so they don't want to take it again at high school because they were a high achieving student, and the prior year in high school they took it and got a great score, and they're like, I don't want to risk getting a lower score. And so I think you have multiple students in a lot of groups without doing a really comprehensive survey as to the reasons why a student isn't taking the accountability version of the test. It would be difficult to give a reason.
All right, thank you. All right, go ahead.
The other thing that I would point out a difference between New Hampshire and Rhode Island is that New Hampshire is one of the last states to still require that students take the essay on the SAT as well. So in Rhode Island, they're only taking 2 sections of the SAT. In New Hampshire, we require students to take 3 because they're taking the essay. And we know that after students have taken those first 2 sections, there are some students who they look at the essay and go, the college I want to go to isn't requiring that I take the essay. I want to take this particular essay. That might also have an impact on some of our participation rates as well. When we first looked at using the SAT as part of our state accountability back in 2015, we were one of the very first states in the country to do that. It was us and about 3 other states. And at that point, all the states were looking at requiring the essay. And most colleges, it was sort of seen as another way of looking at a student's ability. I think colleges have started to gravitate away from that. States have also gravitated away from that. And so at this point, I don't know of another state that requires students to take the essay. New Hampshire might be the only one left that's doing that. We are looking at that as a potential policy change in the future because College Board itself may be looking to move away from the essay, just given the low number of students that are availing themselves of that opportunity across the country. When you try to, and I know one of the things that this committee, it sounded like, was interested in was comparing New Hampshire to other states. There are some ways that we can do that. There are some caveats and there are some cautions that I would give. With the SAT, there are 9 other states that require the SAT as state accountability. So New Hampshire is one of those. Rhode Island is one of those. I have a list here. I can give you the other 7 states here in just a moment. It's Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, Michigan, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Rhode Island, and West Virginia.
Too fast. I lost
Oh, sorry, sure. Indiana, Michigan, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Rhode Island, and West Virginia.
No.
There are 3 or 4 other states that have what are called state choice, where they use either the SAT or the ACT as a test score. It's a little bit more complicated when you start providing choice because at a state level, we have to report out on the 11th graders as a total. Like, are they proficient in reading, writing, and math? And when you have multiple tests, to take multiple tests and put them into sort of a single measurement gets a little bit tricky because you have to start comparing, well, this ACT score means this SAT score and lumping them together. So even within those 3 or 4 states that provide choice, most of the students tend to gravitate towards either one or the other. So they may offer ACT and SAT, but you find that 90% of the students in that state have taken one versus the other one. New Hampshire, we have a relatively small population of students that take the ACT. Anywhere between about 500 and 600 students statewide each year might take the ACT. And generally, the majority of those students are private school students. We don't have a large number of public school students, sort of in any meaningful way right now, that are taking the ACT versus the SAT. And part of that might be because we've adopted the SAT for the last 10 years as our accountability system. So the other thing...
How
yes.
many hours does it take to take the test?
The tests themselves are generally a couple of hours. Both the SAT and the ACT have been moving towards reducing test time. So one of the things that the SAT has done is they have created a 2 sections now to the test. So when I took it back in the late 90s, it was a paper pencil test. You went in, you showed your driver's license, you sat down and you filled out your bubble sheets. It's all digital now. It's done on the computers. And it's what's called a staged adaptive test, where after students have finished the first stage of the test, there's a second batch of questions that the student then receives that are designed to kind of focus more in on where that student's ability is for that particular student. So not every student is going to see the exact same test. And by doing that and using the algorithms with the test questions, we're able to shorten the test, but still get really reliable information on student performance at the end of it.
Okay, thank you. Senator Murphy.
So not every student is taking the same test. Is it possible that a student could take a harder test and end up with a lower score?
No, the test is designed to get to a scale score. And so you're going to have students who are going to finish the first section of that test with a particular scale score. And then the second section of that test is designed to kind of drill into that particular scale score. A better example is actually our general state test. So SAT is only doing this with a single point within the test. They have stage 1, stage 2. With the NHSAS assessment that we have, we do it question by question. And so each question essentially has a probability function to that test question that says, as a student's ability to answer that particular question goes up. So for example, you're going from a lower ability student to a higher ability student, the probability that they're going to get that particular question correct is going to increase. Because if a student has a higher ability, they're more likely to get that question correct. And so we field test all these questions on prior tests to get data on those test questions. So as each student answers that question, it looks to say, okay, your ability is right here right now. So I'm going to pull a question from the test bank where your ability is right at that kind of 50%, like you're 50% likely to get it, you're 50% not likely to get it, because it's going to help us really narrow down onto what your ability level is. So the questions themselves aren't necessarily hard or easy, but through historical testing, we've determined these questions are really good at identifying this particular ability level for that student. And then the students progress through, and essentially, I don't want to say it's like a choose your own adventure story, but in some ways it is, because the questions are being designed for that particular student.
Thank you.
It's also, I will say, helped us to really understand students who are just clicking through the test, because you can see a student who, if they've answered 6 questions in a row and they got 3, questions that would be a lower ability question wrong, but then they get 2 that are a higher ability question correct, there's a very low likelihood that a student is going to answer those 3 questions in this way and these 2 questions in a different way. And so you can start to identify students who are just clicking very quickly through the test as well.
All right. I have a 50-year-old anecdote about this kind of thing, but we'll save it for when the meeting's over. All right, go ahead.
So the other thing that I would say in terms of comparing states is each individual state has their own authority to set cut scores. So New Hampshire got together when we adopted the SAT, we worked with the other 2 states, and we determined what are the 4 levels of cut scores. Most states measure on 4 levels of below proficient, approaching proficient, proficient, and above proficient. That tends to be a pretty common scale across most states. The SAT was designed to determine whether or not a student was going to be ready for college. So when we adopted it as our state test, we had to go through the SAT and determine what scores on the SAT mean those particular levels. Like, what is a below proficient score? What is an approaching proficient score? And so we have cut scores for each of those levels that we determined and we adopted as the state of New Hampshire. And that's what we put out on the department's website when we're talking about what students are percentage level 1, percent level 2, percent level 3, percent level 4. So that doesn't come from College Board, that comes from us, and that was determined 10 years ago by New Hampshire teachers. We did determine that we wanted to use for the level of proficient, so that level 3 cut score, the benchmark level that College Board had set. So if you are a level 3, if you're meeting that cut score is what College Board has said you need in order to be able to be highly likely to earn a C or better in your college English class or your college algebra class. So that's what we adopted for our cut scores, because it matched those cut scores that College Board used to say you're likely to be successful as a college freshman in these classes, at least at a C or better level. Other states may have adopted other levels for cut scores. So that compounds sort of the trickiness of trying to compare SAT scores to other states, because if you look at just percent proficient levels, if we say 60% of our students are proficient in X, and New Mexico says 70% of our students are proficient in X, you really want to look to say, are we using the same cut score to determine what proficiency is? Because of those 9 states, there may be differences in where they've set those cut scores. And that can change. Sometimes a state will say, hey, we've been using this same level of cut scores for 10 years. We think we need to do a reevaluation of where we're at, where students are at, and see, do there need to be any shifts or changes to those cut scores? So it's much easier when comparing something like the SAT to look at raw scores when you're comparing state to state, as opposed to anything that an individual state might have put out relative to proficiency. So I just put that out there as one caveat.
So in states that don't require the SAT, do you have a sense of what fraction of their students take it or not?
I don't. It's something that we could ask College Board. The reports that I have here, College Board produces one for every state in the country. So these two reports I provided are public reports. Last night I pulled them up on Google and printed them out for the committee to look at today. I chose Rhode Island just because it's somewhat similar in size to New Hampshire's testing population and is a New England state. And so we both have some commonalities, being small New England states, both requiring the SAT. Theoretically, you could pull these reports for Maine or Vermont or
Is there
Massachusetts.
a national report?
I believe College Board does a national report
Yeah, why
as
don't
well.
you send us that?
Absolutely.
Yes, Representative Leon.
Thank you. And just to clarify, this benchmark that's on the second page after the pie chart is the College Board benchmark that we set for the level 3 proficiency, but that's consistent throughout all the states.
It may be.
So the benchmark from the College Board is not necessary.
College Board's benchmark
So this
is consistent. Yes.
Perfect. So if this page is the same, then that at least gives one comparison. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Now, College Board has had some discussions about changing their benchmark scores. The way they benchmark it is they take a look at every student in their sophomore year of college. They work with the colleges and universities to get those students' grades in college algebra and college English. And they then go backwards to say, okay, what were those students' SAT scores? And they look to see how many of those students with these SAT scores truly were successful in their college algebra and in their college English classes. They have not changed their benchmark in years and years and years. There's talk about maybe taking a look at that. If they were to do that, New Hampshire may also want to say, okay, College Board is changing their benchmark. Do we need to look at our state assessment scores to see, do we still feel like this score on the SAT is representative of a student being successful in 11th grade? And I want to point out, those are two different purposes. So we're both using that cut score, but we're using it in two different ways. College Board's looking ahead as being predictive of college success. New Hampshire's using it to say, we believe you were successful as a junior in high school. And so that's also one thing to kind of keep in mind as well, too.
Just looking at the state average stuff over time, we think of COVID era of screwing up test scores, right? But it doesn't show up until 2022. Why is 2021 such a good year? Because COVID was certainly active in that year.
I would hazard to guess that because those students were already towards the end of their K-12 experience, having that year disruption didn't have as much of an impact on their academic ability. Because you're talking about students that are already 2 or 3 years away from graduating, where you tended to see far more impacts in learning were in the younger grades. So students who were remote for their whole second grade or their whole third grade, those are years where you're crucially learning fundamental phonetics, reading skills, math skills that kind of build on each other. So there are more long-term impacts in the younger grades, I believe, than what you see here. Probably for that reason. Most of those students are already at the academic level that they were going to be at.
Okay. And how significant is these differences, right? I mean, is a 990 that different than a 1020? Do you see what I mean? Is it?
It's a good question. So yeah,
It's 3%, right? So
Yeah, when you start talking about, what is statistically significant? Is this an increase or is this a decrease? Generally, anything more than, say, 2 or 3, or I would say less than 2 or 3 points is probably not statistically significant. So if you went from one year, our students on average were 518, the next year they were 517, there's no statistical difference between those 2 years. Those students are performing at the same level. I would say even if you went from a 518 to a 519 or 520, you're talking about averaging across, roughly 11,000 students in the state. When you look at individual students, you see scores ranging, across the entire spectrum. You have students scoring all the way at the lowest score that an SAT can provide, all the way up to students who are scoring perfect scores on the SAT. And so the state average tends to blur a lot of those impacts because it's such a large population of students. that average is not going to shift as much as when you look at individual students or individual schools.
All right. So I guess we don't really have something like this for all the states, right?
We do not know. Every state is required to put out certain types of information. They generally do it through static dashboards. And so it's difficult for us to be able to collect large amounts of data like this from other states because it's not being put out there in Excel files. It's generally, here's a dashboard that shows 2025 data. And short of going through and finding every school and district and, typing out the data and trying to collect, it would be a monumental effort. There are certain amounts of data that are shared up with the U.S. Department of Education. We as states, I think, would love to get more access to some of the data that we share up to USED for things like research purposes, for comparisons. But obviously there's a lot of data security around that. We have a lot of statutes relative to student data privacy, which is good. And I should also mention there may be some missing data points within this sheet for New Hampshire as well. If there was ever a group of students for a particular district that were less than 11 students, we're not allowed to put that data out. We can't publish that data because we don't want to disclose academic data that could tie back to specific students. So there are cases where you might see a blank. It's possible the school closed that year, but it's also possible that that's blank because there were fewer than 11 students that year who took the SAT.
So, I see. Now, I don't see Epsom on this list, but maybe that's because they go to high school in Pembroke. Is that it?
It would be under the high school, yes.
I see. Gotcha. Okay. Other questions? No? All right. Yes, go ahead, Representative Dry.
So in towns like Plainfield, Cornish that have school choice, we have no idea how they just show up in somewhere in here.
For most of our reporting, I would say that's correct. About 3 years ago, in order to try to be more responsive to the legislature specifically, we started publishing an Excel spreadsheet on the department website that does list student scores by town and municipality. So that is available. That would be for all of our assessment data. But you could go on there and you could take a look at all the assessment data for the 24-25 school year broken down by town and municipality. And I believe that's based off of who was financially responsible for those students who took the test. I was not able to just pull the SAT data out of that file for this committee hearing, but if you want to look at any assessment data relative to your town for one school year, we do have that going back right now 3 years. We don't have 10 years history yet on that because we only just started publishing by town 3 years ago.
Thank you.
That's Representative Berkey.
On the, I don't know if if it exists or not on the state website, but is there any way, like this data is great data, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not. But it's not the same kids. It's a totally different group of kids. Do we have data on the New Hampshire site that says these are kids in third grade that started out at, proficient? They are still proficient. They went down, they went up as they got to be 11th graders. Do we have data available for that?
We do. So we have a data platform that my team publishes. It's called iPlatform. And there are a number of applications within iPlatform. One of those is iAchieve. And on iAchieve, we publish our assessment proficiency data within a grid. So in that grid, you can follow a cohort down through that. So you can see this was their score in third grade in this year, and now they're in fourth grade this year, they're in fifth grade. And so you kind of follow down like that, and you can watch those trends across the same cohort of kids as they progress through grades.
Is that available to the iPlatform? Is that available to like just districts, or is it available to the whole
The
world?
general public.
Okay.
Yep, it's published on the website. Yep. And you can break it down by school and by district. So you can look at an individual school district. That one is not broken down by town or municipality, so you'd have to take a look at a specific school or district.
Okay.
And then I would just point you as well to iExplore, which is another data dashboard in iReport. You can look at multiple indicators together within a graph. So if you wanted to look at student performance based off of something like equalized valuation rates, you could do that. You could look at suspension rates versus teacher salaries by school and district, and it'll populate. So you can kind of compare different indicators to each other within that data dashboard. Anything that we publish as an indicator, we've put in there as something that you can kind of play with and manipulate for yourself.
Thank you.
I would also suggest there's a fantastic website called edunomicslab.org by Georgetown University, EDUNOMICS lab.org. And that one does takes all the data from his charts and stuff from the state and .org, and it gives it to you in graphs or scatter plots or whatever. So it's visual, and it's really good. That's my go-to thing for comparing, Manchester versus Epsom or whatever, that kind of stuff. And it's got both data on spending, and it's also got data on test scores. So and class sizes and school sizes and all those kind of things. So, and it really does a good job of displaying data visually. So I highly recommend it. Okay. Yes, Representative Bricky.
Do you know where that data that they use comes from? Like,
It
did
comes
get
from
from the state?
Yes, it comes from the state website.
Oh, okay.
And all states have similar reports.
Okay.
But the nice thing is they put all that stuff. They deal with the fact that, well, this state might display it this way and that state and they make it all common, right? So it's much easier to look from state to state or district to district in our case. So that's how I know that, Nottingham is doing such a great job, things like that, right? So anyway, okay. Other things. All right. We're going to meet again on a week from tomorrow. And I believe that's our next to last meeting. And I will try, and I think we're winding down in this gathering of information phase. I will try to get some more information on other states that you asked for. But I will also try to have kind of a draft report, or at least a set of questions to answer to put into a draft report, a decision-making kind of thing. So that'll be for next Thursday. Yes, Representative Bricky.
So I was just wondering, thinking about the scores and everything, so the scores that have to be put on the warrant, on the ballot, what kinds of scores, I don't know if this is for Mr. Green or if it's something that we need to actually look at. What kinds of scores are we going to be asking school districts to put on the ballots? Like, what's the scores that the state's going to be giving to districts to put on their ballots? Do you have an answer? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'd let you get back to your
This is a side
seat.
topic, but yeah,
Let's
go
get
ahead.
back to
Good
your
question.
seat.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It's all about scores, though. It's still about scores. It is a little off topic.
Right.
I often say having as much data to make a decision is the best way to go, and you can never have enough data. The state has a variety of assessments within, I would say, what we call the statewide assessment system. So you have your general statewide assessment. That's what I think most people tend to think of when they think of state tests. We start that in grade 3, and that runs through grade 8 for reading, writing, and for math. For science, we only test in grade 5, and it's representative of elementary school science. So it's supposed to be sort of an accumulation of how much has that student learned K-5 in science, and then we test again in 8th grade, which is their middle school accumulation. So there's only 2 science tests, 5th grade, 8th grade. And then in high school, we take the SAT at 11th grade, and then we have a separate science test that, because SAT doesn't do science as a standalone test, so our regular state assessment vendor that does the 3-8 testing provides us with an 11th grade science test. So any one of those tests would be representative of student proficiency in reading, writing, math, and science. We do have some other assessments as well for students who have significant cognitive disabilities who through regular accommodations still cannot access the regular assessment. we provide a specialized assessment called the Dynamic Learning Maps. It tends to take academic standards and breaks them into smaller chunks, and then it provides innovative ways of testing students on those smaller chunks as those students are working up to learning the full standards. So it's a different assessment, but still designed to test students' reading, writing, math, and science. And it's a very small number of students statewide that do that. In fact, the U.S. Department of Education does not allow states to test more than 1% of their population in that. Although there are some states that have tested more than that and have had to seek waivers from USAID for that. We tend to test around 0.9% of our state population with that particular test. And then we have a test of English language proficiency. So for any of our New Hampshire students who are not proficient in English, we require them to take each year a test of their English language proficiency as they're working towards becoming proficient in English. So any one of those assessments is data that we publish and that we have available. My guess relative to the bill that you're referring to would likely be the general assessment that tends to be about 3 through 8 and 11th grade.
Okay. Other questions? No. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So, we'll adjourn, and I'll tell my anecdote this way. I love telling this one because it's, I don't know, I think it's funny. Anyway, so 50 years ago, I was a high school student in Saratoga, California. And you can think of Saratoga as like Bedford or Wolfboro or something like that. It was a relatively wealthy suburb, but not tippy top, right? So, and so one day when I was, I guess it was a junior maybe, the administration came to me and said, the state is putting in a program for advanced students, exceptional students or whatever, and we'd like to get some money from this program. Would you mind taking an IQ test? And and if we get people that score well, then we can get be in this program, right? So I said, sure, why not? I was a good student and I like taking tests and all that. So the way the IQ test works is the tester is a person, and you sit down across the desk from the person and they ask you a bunch of questions, right? And so they're asking me all these questions and I'm answering. And we come to a question where they give you like 4 different numbers and they say to you, what's the next number in the sequence? Okay, so 4 different numbers, I figure out the formula and here's the next number in the sequence. And, but the problem was, the problem was I could think of 2 different formulas that both met the same sequence, right? And so I'm trying to think which one is the right one, right? And I check my answer and both were correct and both give an answer. So I gave one of the answers and I look at the person to try to think, did I get it right? Is there some kind of reaction? Did I get it right or wrong? No reaction, right? And so the next question was, I'll read you this paragraph and you repeat back to me as much of the paragraph as you can remember. Okay, so they read some paragraph and I'm still thinking about this sequence, right? And I'm thinking about the 2 different ways to calculate it and checking my results. So I wasn't listening to the and at the end of, they read the paragraph, okay, now repeat back to me. I said, I can't, I can't repeat it. And they look at me and they said, is there something wrong? And, I was an uncommunicative teenager, right? So, no, nothing's wrong. And so they said, well, if you can't read back the paragraph, that's the end of the test, right? Because it was adaptive in some sense, right? That you have to complete X in order to go on to the next step of the test, right? So I couldn't read back the paragraph, so therefore that's the end of the test. There's no more testing. I said, okay, and I left. And like a few weeks later, I asked the same the counselor told me to take the test. I said, how did it go? And the answer was, not as well as we'd hoped.
Yeah.
So
We are now.